Another day of hedge fund puking team. What's going on? Welcome to your market recap video. This is Andrew O'Connell with Pristine Capital. Let's dive into today's price action. We will dissect what is going on here. S&P 500, it finished down just 0.41%. Nothing too crazy. Basically put in a doji candle. But we did have some major weakness in the Nasdaq and the ARK Innovation ETF. Nasdaq was down 1.16%. ARK Innovation ETF was down 5.92%. Now here was an interesting divergence. The small caps actually outperformed the Nasdaq. Then the Dow Jones actually finished positive. Look at all of these indices. Everything pretty much closed towards the middle end of its day's range, aside from ARK. Tesla was very weak today, and that really just put ARK in a tailspin. Here's another interesting positive divergence. Even though the S&P 500 finished down, the VIX actually closed down 4.85% as well. And then in terms of our market breadth, it was pretty much negative across the board other than the Dow Jones, but we didn't have that same washout breadth that we were having last week when these hedge funds were really just puking their guts up. My trend model is still at a +1. So with that said, I want to make sure that I'm not net short the market, anything like that, even if we have a day where the market pulls. If you're anchoring on Friday's price action where everything was zooming to the upside, and or if you're underwater on a ton of positions and you're just like emotionally drained, today was a pretty tough day. And or I'll add, if you're watching the screens a little bit too much, because overall nothing really happened. We put in an inside day for all of the indices. But take a look at this heat map. Tesla was pretty weak. And all of these mega cap tech names that, pretty much every hedge fund owns, every retail investor, institution, these were all very weak as well. Remember, everyone had been hiding out in these names. Then they started to puke. And now it looks like we just had a continuation of that. Energy stocks showed some relative strength. And overall, when you look at this heat map, definitely some weakness across the board. But again, this was Friday's heat map. Look how strong and bright green everything was. Nvidia was up almost 10% in a single day. Apple's up big, Tesla's up big, like everything was up huge. So then when you go to this, it kind of feels like the sky is falling. But to be honest, just an inside day. Sectors, take a look here. Overall, definitely some weakness. The energy sector was the hottest, up 2.64%. And crude oil is up at around like $113 a barrel again. So definitely got to start watching out for that. Pretty noteworthy though, all of these risk on areas of the market that were huge advancers on Thursday and Friday, these took a back seat. And you can see that ARK Innovation ETF was down. You can see the blockchain assets were down. All the other ancillary ARK funds were down as well. Here was the really interesting thing. We did get some negative economic data out from China. So basically like, oh my gosh, this economic data is so bad. I shared a graph of this on Twitter and within the Pristine Capital Discord community. And it's like the worst data that we've seen since the coronavirus crash. That's absolutely horrible. When I came into the session, I thought, hey, maybe these stocks, they're just going to sell off and have like a really bad session. But KWEB actually finished out positive. So let's take a look at the index price action. The S&P 500 closed out pretty much right at 4,000 on the nose. Now keep in mind, we have options expiration on Friday, team. A lot of times these OPEX weeks, they are a huge slugfest. You go back and forth, a lot of mean reversionary price action. A lot of times you end the week in pretty much the same exact spot that you started it. So overall, take a look at this. We finished off, last week when we hit our lows, the S&P 500 was at about 3851. In about 1.5 sessions, we went from 3850 all the way up to 4030. That's like a good 4% and change move. So remember, in the markets, there's always that desire for like, hey, I want the market to go up 4.5% in 1.5 sessions. And then I want it to go up another 2% the next day and another 2% the following day. In reality, remember, we talked about this in our weekend market analysis. We just had a huge hedge fund liquidation event. All these players got blown out of their positions. And when that happens, a lot of times it's pretty messy. Then you combine the options expiration you know, it's not really just going to be like a straight line higher. So to be honest, like the fact that we just got a little inside day, to me, I'm perfectly fine with that. I wouldn't mind if we got, you know, 2 or 3 more inside days and then we're able to break out of this downward trend channel. Let's take a look. We're just above the 5-day EMA. And look at this. This is our hourly chart. This is our weekly value area. And we're pretty much just like straddling the line of this weekly point of control at around 4,012.5. I do think if we can get beyond this weekly value area high at around 4,048.5, I think that's where we get like a squeeze move higher. And I think the shorts will really be in trouble. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we do some more balancing out within this value area. Let's take a look at the Nasdaq. And Nasdaq also finished down 1.18%. You know, you can see that's pretty ugly. But the Nasdaq as well really just put in a little inside candle, nothing too crazy. Russell 2000, this one actually showed relative strength in literally just the same exact thing. So yeah, if you're staring at the screens and you're like, art market, go up now, no now, no now, like that's where you can really, like, it might feel like today was like, oh my gosh, the market just got crushed. And look at the Dow Jones. This one actually finished out positive and just literally put in a doji candle. Now the ARK Innovation ETF, this one definitely got throttled, and I'm currently long the ARK Innovation ETF January 2023 call, so I do have exposure to this. This also pretty much was just an inside day though. So yeah, we pretty much traded inside the candle from the prior day. But yeah, the one thing I'm looking at, you know, my trend model is at a +1. I am allocated in risk across the board. If the ARK Innovation ETF loses the lows that we made on Thursday, that's where I would say, okay, I was completely wrong about getting long any of these assets, like we're still in trouble, etc. But yeah, I think a day of sideways movement, you know, you got to just sort of give it the benefit of the doubt. Because again, this is a pretty messy, fluid situation. And a lot of times when the market actually makes a bottom, it usually occurs as a result of options expiration. So I also want to be open to the fact that, like, what happens if we like retest these lows and then we just bounce off of it and we sort of just carve this out? That could happen as well. So I want to just make sure this week, you know, nothing too crazy in terms of expectations. More than happy to see just like some balancing action. All right, let's take a look. What else did we want to talk about? So growth got pounded. A lot of these names really just gave back their gains. Tesla did show some abnormal weakness today. It was down 5.88%. Definitely looks pretty weak. And we have a virgin point of control down here at around $609. So definitely not what we want to see for Tesla. Because look at all this. Look at all these dead bodies up here that were buying this thing up in the thousands, 1100, etc. And then we've got some of the more popular names like Datadog gave back almost all of Friday's gains, and actually more than that. Yeah, it's down trading towards the lows. Cloudflare, this one as well, down 13.59%. So yeah, like if you're anchoring on Friday, really tough. If you're not, you know, basically just a sideways again. All right, let's take a look here. We are going to pull up some of my trades for the day. And let's take a look. We're going to start off here with some options trades. So I was short these Pure Cycle May 20th 7.5 strike puts. I sold those for 55 cents. I wanted to see if I could actually buy this stock with a cost basis of $6.95. And PCT, this is kind of like the cool thing about selling put options. Like if I had just bought PCT stock right over here, which is I believe where I put on this short options trade, I would have gotten stopped out pretty quickly, would have taken a loss. But because I sold the puts, I was able to sit with this position through this drawdown right here. And then now we've bounced. So yeah, we're well above my strike of 7.5. So I said, hey, I'm going to close this out, take the winner. And then if this thing dips again, I would like to just go ahead and sell those puts once more. So yeah, definitely good. The premium selling trades, those have definitely been working the best for me. And then we already talked about this earlier. I did add some China exposure. just because it was definitely pretty jarring for me when I saw that negative economic data and then China was actually showing relative strength. It's the sort of thing where if I noticed it and I didn't add any exposure, then I would probably kick myself for not doing so. So yeah, I added the FXI calls out to 2023, the 31 strike, and I just made sure to size it very small because the group is showing momentum, but it's such a volatile group. You still have the delisting risk, you still have the Taiwan invasion risk. These things could go to zero. So yeah, I just made it a really small position. I don't have to worry about getting stopped out of it if it is very volatile. And that's a really good use case for using options. Like if it's just a really whippy instrument, you don't want to worry about getting stopped out, you can just size it for max loss. And then what else did I do here? Over the weekend, I did buy some Bitcoin in my crypto account at Coinbase. So yeah, I got an entry for 29,632. I put it right here. I will add this position if and when Bitcoin tags 20K. I think there's so much fear within this crypto space because of what happened with Terra, Luna, UST, etc. And the fact that there's all those liquidations going on and Bitcoin is holding pretty strong around 30K. I actually really like that because this Terra Foundation, they're forced sellers of Bitcoin. Like, look, this is Dylan LeClaire posted this earlier. Market absorbed indiscriminate selling of 80,000 BTC over a few days. Not bad. And that really resonated with me. This was actually after I made my Bitcoin purchase. But take a look here. So look at this high volume selling, but someone else is buying from these weak hands. See, I went in, made a purchase below 30K. Feel pretty good about that. And then today also, just to really like add to this position, I got long the Hut 8 mining common shares for 248. And I noticed with Hut 8, this was one of our Pristine Capital weekend watch list names. What was really interesting is that Hut 8, I entered this one at 248, so I'm up like a penny on this trade so far. Hut 8 mining, when I entered, it was down, maybe 10% or pretty close to that. But the implied volatility when I bought it, it had actually declined day over day. So on Friday, this was about like 191. And when I made the purchase, like the asset had declined by almost 10%. And the implied vol was actually lower than on Friday. So I was like, hey, I have this Bitcoin thesis. The crypto miners are a great way to play that. I think everyone has been washed out of their crypto miners. So yeah, you'll notice like I'm doing a lot of bottom fishing now because when these players get blown out, you can have a really good opportunity to pick the carcass. That's exactly what I'm doing. Some things that would really like concern me, I guess, is if Bitcoin breaks down to new lows, like if it breaks below 25K, the ARK Innovation ETF starts pulling back beyond where it was on Thursday, things of that nature. Like it's just par for the course for options expiration week. My trend model is still at a +1. So as of right now, I think we're in pretty good shape. With that being said, that about does it for this market recap video. Hope you all enjoy the rest of your evening. As always, I'll see you all tomorrow. Have a good night, everyone.